Hello and welcome to the Sober Experience, formerly known as the Spiritual Experience, where we share stories of overcoming problematic situations in life through triumph and working together, as well as recovery topics and all other forms of spirituality, self-help, and the like. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Sober Experience. Hope you guys are doing well. Don't forget, like and subscribe on all podcast platforms. And we have our YouTube channel up, which just has the audio version of the show that drops once a week. And, you know, we don't do any videos, so that way everybody could remain anonymous. Either way, we have special guest today, somebody that I've admired and still admire for reasons that will be revealed, because they're fucking totally awesome. And she's a member of my home group, and I'm excited to have her on here. So everybody say hello to Sam. Sam, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
All right. First things first. Sam, where are you from?
I am from Syracuse, New York.
What was it like growing up there?
A lot of cold, a lot of cows. No, it is cold. It's the second darkest place in the continental United States. Not a lot of sun. Pretty empty in a lot of ways. We got a lot of Wegmans, though.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
For Wegmans.
We just got them over here in the city.
At long last.
I know. I love it. It's giving Whole Foods a run for its money.
It was the only thing that we had that you guys didn't, and but I'm glad it's here because I'm here now too. So.
Yeah, totally. Okay, you have siblings?
I have two brothers. I'm the youngest. I'm the baby, and. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty close in age too. I'm 34, and they're in their late 30s.
Where do they live?
Up in Syracuse.
Are you like the renegade?
What do you mean by that?
Are you like the one that broke out of the pack and came
Yes.
running down to the city?
Well, one of my brothers lives in Buffalo, and then I ran away to California for college. The only college I got into when I was 19, 18. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to be anywhere but Syracuse.
Wow.
And then I went to Portland right after that. Then I went to New York finally, and I thought I'll be here for a few months. And that was 10 years ago.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah, so growing up in Syracuse, it's a whole different thing than California. What made you want to really get out of there?
I think before I even realized what a geographic was, I think I was kind of doing it as a teenager. I really hated, I'd have had depression since I was really young. And I've had a lot of, mental illness stuff.
Is that stuff in your family, or is it just, yeah?
It's stuff in my family. It definitely was amplified in me. My mom has told me that I haven't been able to sleep since I was about 2.
Wow.
I stopped taking naps when I was a toddler, which obviously she's an angel for dealing with that. I cannot imagine having a baby that just hates sleeping. But it's I've been very sad since I was 6 or 7, and the other people in my family have depression, but it seemed like it was, a little bit highlighted, circled, underlined for my childhood. And then when I got older, when I was 18, I applied to some schools. I barely put any effort into school my whole life. And I wasn't one of those kids that put in no effort and did well. I was one of those kids who put in no effort and it showed. And so I did get into one school for music, and I went to school in California. And I didn't ever graduate, but I was there. It was warm.
Were you always like creative, even as a kid?
I was. I think I sang opera for a long time. That's what I went to school for briefly, and then I dropped out of that program. Turns out they won't let you smoke cigarettes, and I made that choice. And it turns out alcohol is very bad for singing, and I also made that choice. But I loved playing piano. I played flute. I did a lot of...
Even as a kid, like you were growing up playing in school?
Yeah, and I did that from when I was in kindergarten-ish to my senior year of high school. And I also did a lot of writing, and that's still what I do. I do a lot of writing. I wrote a lot of poetry starting when I was really young. So I always really liked doing things that were creative. I always thought those were really fun. And I was very blessed. My mom's a librarian, and so I got really lucky because she was extremely encouraging of all that kind of stuff.
What was your dad like?
He's a sports coach. He's very different than my mom, but they complement each other. He's very charismatic. My mom's more shy. She's more introverted. And he's very, very extroverted. And I have always, self-identified as an extreme extrovert. I love people. The pandemic was tough because I couldn't have small talk with strangers.
Right.
And that was rough. I once had a full conversation about cats with a guy who was delivering a pizza, and I could tell both of us just were extroverts who needed to have an interaction about something. But yeah, my dad he's very extroverted, very charismatic. He loves parties. I love parties. He yells a lot. I yell a lot. And my mom, on the other hand, she's very quiet. She loves people, but she loves animals. And she loves, she loves taking care of kids. She likes education, and that's always been really important to me. I've always loved reading. I love kids. I love caring for animals, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you're like my cat meme sister.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So as you're going through school, when did the partying come into play?
When I was 12 or 13, I was at my uncle's wedding, and I sang in the church and at the reception.
Were your parents like big church people, or?
Oh no, I just sang at the church for the wedding. You sang at that church, okay. Just for that wedding. Yeah, no, we went to church. I think.
So you were like a talented singer even as a kid?
I mean, it's hard because I still have a hard time admitting that I was good at it, because it's still like, no, I'm supposed to say I'm bad at things. No, I was pretty good at it, and my voice like sounded operatic from a really young age, so I could sing, and I sounded a lot older than I was when I was probably 11 or 12. And so when I was singing and I was 12 or 13 in this church, I think at the time I thought I looked older than I did, because they did serve me at this open bar. And for years I was like, well, that's because I was wearing a lot of makeup and I was 12, but I was 5'6", 5'7". And then you look at 12-year-olds now, and it doesn't matter how tall they are. And it does not matter how much makeup they're wearing. They do not look like they're 21. They do not look like they're 18.
Right.
They're 12. So
but it was also a different time.
It was a different time. And that
doesn't excuse it. Please, if you are listening, do not give children beer.
Yes. Well, it was a sea breeze.
Whatever.
And it was, my cousin had ordered one. And so she let me try it. And then I pretended I didn't know that alcohol was in it. And I went and I ordered one. And I ordered 2 more. And by the time...
Right away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, it was so fast that I wanted to drink things fast. I didn't realize... I mean, when I look back on it, it's just like... I loved doing things as quickly as I could. I mean, I still drink seltzer usually the way I drank alcohol. It's just like I will go through a 12-pack of LaCroix so fast, and at least now when I take out the recycling, I'm not like ashamed of that.
Right.
That's a good feeling. But yeah, I got my mom came over to me, and she realized that I was tipsy, and I pretended I didn't know that there was alcohol in the drink. And so when I came into the rooms and I heard someone say alcoholics love secrets, I think about that a lot, is that the first time I drank anything, I wanted to keep it a secret, and I loved that it was a secret. I loved that I had a secret, even though it was very obvious, I couldn't keep that secret very well, but I immediately wanted to lie.
It's so funny, because if you think about it now, like think about a 12-year-old person trying to make pretend, it's so...
Oh, it's hard.
It's funny when you see that. They're like, the dog ate my homework.
Oh yeah,
like it's that kind of.
I didn't know it was alcohol.
I didn't know it was alcohol.
No,
it's funny. I find it interesting, because you have like this dichotomy of both. You're saying that like on the inside, like you're sad, but you have this wild, ray of expression, right? Where it's just like you can do it with music, you can do it with writing, you can do it singing, like all of these things that are like, it doesn't look like you're hiding anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was always very good with...
So that's like secret number one.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm thinking listening to your story. I'm like, forget about the drinking. How about nobody knows how sad I am because I'm over here playing the piano, singing in the church, doing the thing in freaking Syracuse, New York.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 5'7".
I'm 5'6.5". One doctor said I was 5'7" like 10 years ago, and I've gone with that.
Yeah. I do the same. I'm like 5'5", but then like one guy put 5'6" on the DMV thing, and I stuck with it. So now I just tell people I'm 5'7" with Tim's on.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've seen me. I wear platforms everywhere. And when I wear regular sneakers, people will always go, wait, when did you...
That's so funny. So did you want to drink right after that, like right away, or you just like, that was like one time and that's gonna be it?
I did, but I didn't have any opportunities to because neither of my parents really drank, and we did not ever have alcohol in the house, and so I wasn't really around it. And my grandparents didn't drink, my cousins didn't really, to my knowledge, but they were all older than I was, so I wasn't, out with them. My brothers don't really drink. And as soon as I was in high school, though, I was with my friend. We were both 15. A guy we met at Hot Topic because I was in the suburbs. This guy from Hot Topic who was 21, which in retrospect, real creepy for a 21-year-old to buy. Super weird to buy two 15-year-olds, Smirnoff Ice. And that was the first time I remember getting like truly, immediately I wanted to be obliterated. As soon as I knew that was an option, I did not even know what it was like to feel tipsy for another 4 years after that, because I'd only ever been plastered or not drinking.
Right. Yeah. You wanted the effect right away.
Immediately.
Yeah. Smirnoff Ice. Ugh.
I know. I didn't drink anything grape for years after that. Because, Smirnoff Ice is gross anyways, but it was all grape flavors.
For me, I remember it being like very like, if you think about it now that you and I are adults, it's like very like acidic.
Yes.
Right?
It gives me heartburn to think about.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like, when I was at that age, we were like, everybody has the 12-round bout with friggin' Southern Comfort. And that's what I had. And even now, like, it's like, oh my God. I drank it once and I never drank it again because I drank it all the way to oblivion. Oh. But I think about, that time Smirnoff Ice and you're like, oh, well, I'm a young person. Looking back, of course the guy's a creep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but whatever. You mosey along.
Oh, yeah.
And then so you're getting out of high school and you're getting ready to go to college. Are you drinking regularly by now or no?
Not that regularly, although sometime between then I did go to a 1-year-old's birthday party and we played Flip Cup with Southern Comfort. That's the only time I drank Southern Comfort. Yeah. Oh God. I mean,
at a 1-year-old's birthday party.
1-year-olds, but the 1-year-olds were not playing the Flip Cup. Their coordination isn't so good. I'm just kidding. Also, but they didn't. But yeah, it was. I remember being in like a sundress and everything. But yeah, sometimes my friends would have parties and. Pretty much every time I drank, I was just like a whole, the only times that I wasn't the one throwing up was when I was taking care of somebody else throwing up.
Right.
And, that's suddenly you feel so sober when you're not the most wasted person. But I was always so out of my mind. And I never liked being in my head starting from when I was a really young kid. And so the second I had the option to not be in my head, I was so excited about that.
Right. I was going to ask, it was really turning off the noise.
Yes. I wanted to be out. It didn't feel very safe to be alone with my own thoughts. I think this is one of the reasons I'm so extroverted is because being alone with my own head was like not the preferable option. I wanted to be outside of things, so I could hide amongst the rest of the world,
amongst the living.
And I didn't get tipsy until I think my freshman year of college. My first month I was in the dorms, and the only time I got tipsy was because we had this bottle of Malibu, a couple of these people on my floor, and we ran out. And I had never been tipsy before, and I remember thinking, just sitting there, I'd had like 2 shots, and I was like, oh, this is what it's like to not be 0 to 60, because that feels very representative of my drinking. It was like, I stopped because I ran out, not because I wanted to. And I remember being really sad because I was like, who invites people over? I mean, we were 18, so it's just whatever they had. But like, I was like, the nerve of you with this one tiny bit of Malibu. Rude. I don't even remember their names because, of course, that didn't matter. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I could be drinking for the effect, I was so excited about that effect.
Right. Now, did you find other people? How did you find college? Did you find like your brood?
Yes and no. I found a lot of people who did drink as much as I did, or as much as I wanted to, as much as I had aspired to, I think. And even then, I still felt like I could still kind of tell that I drank differently than a lot of my friends, especially a lot of the friends I had that were women, people would drink and they would get drunk and they would party and stuff like that, but it was like their aim was not to black out, and that was definitely mine. It's scary because blacking out, we've talked about it. It's like, it's so disturbing that it happens the way it does, but I loved it. I thought it was like time traveling. And right away there were consequences. It was, I'd wake up in scary places, or I'd wake up having been not so nice to people, yelling.
How are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating?
At that point, so actually that's something that I've always had. I've had a lot of problems with food, and I've had an eating disorder since I was 12. And I'm 34 now, so it's been a long time. And by then, that was my freshman year especially. It was like a time period when I was eating kind of normally. But my sophomore year, I stopped eating again. And so the combination of drinking very heavily
and not eating
it was, and I wasn't sleeping. It's no wonder that things just kept escalating very badly over and over. And I was always so surprised because I'd kept setting up and been like, well, but I drink so much water. Why is this happening to me?
Right. No, I think it's like where, we have a lot of, we want to control.
Yeah.
So whatever we're feeling, we don't want to feel it, so we need to control that feeling. And I know that I didn't have an eating disorder, but I ain't never eat. Mm-hmm. When I'm drinking, that is what I'm doing. And if I'm drinking all the time, that is what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, have a meal every couple days or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Where it's just, it becomes the main event.
Well, I thought that's the calories.
Right.
These are calories are calories. And it's like, of course I knew.
Yeah.
You need.
So when did the consequences in school start showing up?
Oh, right away. I mean, I had to I dropped out of the music program within 6 months. My voice just wasn't very good at that point. It was like deteriorating a little bit because I had gotten throat surgery because I had tonsillitis for 2 years. And
you had tonsillitis for 2 years?
2 years, because I knew that if I got surgery, it would mess up my vocal range. And it did. But that was a great excuse to quit, because people recover from that. And I chose not to, because I was like, well, this is a great time for me to call it quits on the dreams, which I'm glad I did, because in retrospect, I didn't, despite being an extrovert, I hated being on stage. But I did a writing program, but I still couldn't tell you what any professor in that college's name was for 4 years, because I didn't really go to class. I'm still in student debt. I did not get a degree, and I'm still in student debt. But I didn't go to class. I didn't pay attention to things. I still get the test dream because I get so anxious about school. I haven't been there since 2012, and I still get the dream where I wake up and I've missed the class. But yeah, it was so quick. My grades were so bad so quickly, and I was working, though. I was doing makeup on weekends, which was great because I could work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then I could drink, all night after that.
Like professional makeup?
I was doing mostly student films for friends, and sometimes commercials and short films and stuff like that, and sometimes photo shoots. And I loved doing makeup. I loved playing around with stuff like that. Was another creative outlet. But
yeah, it's all like in the same vein.
Oh, yeah. And it's so fun. It was just, I loved getting to know people. I loved being on set at the time. And I liked that it was weird hours because my sleep schedule was so messy.
And you're already weird.
And I was so weird already. I was very vampiric. It worked well for that. But I was also not super great, at my job a lot of the time. Even though I did show up usually, a lot of times I showed up really hungover. Most of the time I showed up really hungover. Yeah. It's hard to be good at anything when half your brain is still sleeping.
Right. So what happens next?
Well, when I was a sophomore, I got pregnant. When everything kind of changed, because when I found out I was pregnant, I remember it was so quick. I quit smoking. I quit drinking. At the time was bulimic. I quit purging. I stopped drinking caffeine, and it was instant.
Right away?
Immediately.
Oh.
And I was because I was well, I guess this is what, I'm 20. And I guess I was this is what I'm doing. Everybody just didn't know what I was going to do, but I think they all kind of assumed I was not going to go through with it. But I wanted to, and I felt it was the first time in my life where I felt I wanted to be healthy for somebody else. And I ended up having a really, really horrible miscarriage. And I had to be hospitalized, and I had to get surgery. And it was
sober, it happened.
Yeah. And it was bad. And so pretty much as soon as I got out of that hospital, I went from wanting to drink all the time whenever I could, and then I just needed it all the time because I was so distraught. And so I felt so empty and so angry, and I was so, when you're 20 and you have a horrible miscarriage, there's a lot of people who will be well, you didn't want that anything. Your life would have been so bad. Things wouldn't have gone well. And it's that's so unfair. It was I was not allowed to mourn, and I was not allowed to be sad about this because people thought this was a good thing for me. And that's still, that people don't have that reaction anymore. But when when I was 20, people had that reaction as though I should be okay with this happening or grateful that it happened. And that's crazy still to me. I don't blame them though. They were kids and they were, whatever. People don't have as much empathy when they're 19, 20.
They don't have it.
They don't know yet.
It's not, and in one sense, they're trying to help you, and be no, don't worry, it's okay. And, those experiences, I know personally, they take something from you.
Yeah.
And it's, stuff that you don't get over, you learn how to live with it.
Yes.
But I'm not shocked and especially as a young person, you went from high school straight to the Olympics after that, I'm sure.
I went from I was I love 40s to being I love drinking as much vodka out of a plastic bottle as I can find, whatever. And I was still under 21, so I couldn't. I was under 21 and I was a coward, so I wouldn't even attempt to buy it, but I would always ask other people to buy stuff for me. And so whatever they would get, that was large format,
I'll take it.
I'll take it. And I have $10.
Yeah.
So whatever's gross, I don't care, And I ended up being, I was put into, I had a really bad psychological breakdown, and I got hospitalized. And I'd been hospitalized once before when I was in high school. But this time was an adult hospital. And I was there for about a week. And I thought I was like, well, depression is my problem. The miscarriage is my problem. And the second I got out of that hospital, I went and had one smoothie and then something like 18, 20 shots of wild turkey. But drinking was not my problem, is what I thought. And yeah, I didn't stop drinking for another few years. And I mean, yeah.
You stayed in California?
I did. Honestly, in retrospect, it's like, I think I just wanted to stay out there because I didn't want to face anybody back at home. I didn't want to talk to my parents about anything.
Did they know what was going on?
I was scared about worrying anybody. And also, I didn't want anybody to be mad at me. I liked avoiding things. I still don't want anyone to be mad at me, And, but at that time, too, it was just easier to stay out there and keep doing what I was doing and keep drinking as much as I was drinking. And I thought I never thought that would not make me happy. I thought I was kind of happy at the time. I knew I wasn't really happy, but I thought that was the best it was going to get. It's like, I was going to be out there, I was going to party, and I was going to, at least it was sunny, which it was not in Syracuse. But as I got older, the consequences got worse and worse. And each year it was like, there are more and more, I had more and more bruises when I would wake up. I would have more and more situations that were really scary. And I ended up, my senior year, I was 21, and I had behaved really horribly one night. I drank a lot, and needless to say, and I'd gotten very angry with a friend. I gotten angry with everybody, and it's just, I didn't want anybody to be mad at me, which is, a theme. And my friend who had just gotten sober, he took me to an AA meeting. And I went there I stayed sober for 60 days.
What was that like?
What's wild is, in retrospect, I did not know there was a book. I didn't know what a sponsor was. I couldn't have told you any of the steps. I think I would have probably misquoted the first step. But I went to meetings, but I really didn't pay attention. It turns out they talk about the book a lot. So I don't know how I missed that existed. But it was, those 60 days where things were better. They weren't good, but they were better because I wasn't, I wasn't waking up scared, but I was definitely not sober yet. And I didn't do any of the other things that were suggested. But when I got my 60-day chip in Los Angeles, and then promptly went out and didn't come back for another 11 years. And so one of the things that scares me the most is, like, if I was to start drinking again, I think it's so important that it's emphasized that it's okay to come back, because I never want to take an 11-year absence of not coming back. And I don't think I would, but, I already did it once, so.
Yeah, that must have been a tough ride.
It was not fun. I think I'm really grateful to that friend, my friend Tommy, who has been sober ever since. I'm so grateful that he brought me to those meetings, though, because even though I didn't stay, and I definitely didn't stay sober, 11, 12 years later, when I needed help, and I realized I needed help, and I was actually willing to get help, I Googled AA. Actually, I technically Googled Al-Anon because I forgot that that's not the same as AA. I do not know why I Googled Al-Anon.
That's so funny.
And I was like, there's not that many meetings. I thought there'd be tons. And then I realized I'd just forgotten. And so when I found AA, though, I don't think I would have gone if I hadn't gone to those original meetings. And I'm still really happy that I did.
Yeah. Shout out Tommy.
Shout out to Tommy.
Come to New York. We'll hang out. We'll get him a burger
Yes.
and a donut at the no, we'll get him a grilled cheese.
A grilled cheese.
The grilled cheese at the donut.
Grilled cheese. Shout out to grilled cheeses.
Yeah, so you stayed on that elevator for, you said, 12 more years?
Yeah.
And that elevator only goes down, ladies and gentlemen, or however you identify. It only goes down.
Oh, it's...
So it got dark.
Things got dark. And, you know, best case scenario, they were great. It was so boring. I mean, it was just like... There are years of my life that nothing happened. I mean, so many things happened, it feels like. But when I look at it, it's like the reason it's so blurry is not just because I was drinking. It's because I couldn't proverbially like move because I didn't want to have goals. I did work, but you know, and
What field were you working in?
Journalism, and I was.
So you're still being creative.
Yeah, and I loved that. I love the internet. I love goofy, geeky things. But I would say, as far as like, I loved writing poetry, and I did that for a few years in New York. But one of the reasons I stopped was because I wanted to spend more time drinking than I did actually like writing or showing up to things on time.
Right.
And now anybody who says, you know, I guess I can only speak for myself, but I don't trust when people say that you have to be like drinking or doing substances to be creative. I think it's the opposite for me, because there are journals where you can tell I started writing while I was, you know, sort of sober. And then by the end of whatever entry it is, I'm drunk and the text is illegible. Anything that's legible is stupid. It's not well written. Sometimes I'm just writing lyrics to songs that already exist. And so it's like the more that I was drinking, the less creative I was. And that's so sad.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I always look at it like initially when we find that freedom, it's like, oh, this is the way out. And then it turns into, oh, no, you can't leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, I thought this was the way out.
No, the door's locked.
Yeah. And you're like, yeah, and they're like, oh, no, you can't leave. And it's painful, the acknowledgement of that. Yeah. When it dawns on you, we're always the last to know. We could probably knock on the doors of some of your neighbors from that time, and they could be like, Sam was a lot.
You were sleeping in the hallway that one
time. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But we're like the last to know. And then for me, like I always had this very sincere sense of betrayal when I found out that, like, I'm trapped. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? So then what makes you turn that corner and say, okay, I'm going to try to find Al-Anon, Al something.
Al something.
Did you have like a rough night, or is it just like a regular day and then something just dawns on you and say, hey, I went to these meetings?
You know, it was the summer of 2022 and it was a rough summer. It was, I mean, after things opened up in 2021 kind of more, it was like I went off the rails in a lot of ways for about a year. It was, you know, when things started opening up, I had gained some weight over the pandemic, and even though that doesn't really matter to me, at the time I was feeling really bad about it, and the eating problems came back and I just stopped eating. And then I started drinking a lot again, and things were opening up again, so I could go out, and I wanted to be social. So every time somebody wanted to make plans, I was like, oh yeah, we'll go ahead, and then I'll stay out for way too long. But I was also still drinking at home the way I had during the pandemic, so everything.
Were you working from home during the pandemic?
I was, and
that brought a lot of people into recovery.
Yes,
it did, because like you know, it's like, you know, going from the C train to the A train, right? For people who aren't in New York, and I know there's a lot of you, sorry. The C train is a local train. The A train is express. So it's like all of a sudden, boom, 2 years in the house, and a lot of people got sober during the pandemic because
I was transferred to the express train.
Oof, it was rough. I couldn't even imagine.
Oh, it was so bad.
And then things start opening up, and then you're like, okay. But now you're coming out of the pandemic
Full
with
speed
like
ahead.
with like an extra arm.
Yes. And I was so excited things were opening up. And I was like, oh, these places I used to be a regular at. I'll just go there. And I'll go to the places that are new. And I'll go to the places that friends want to meet up. And I'll go to, I would go to so many places and then I also still drink at home a lot. And if I was going out, sometimes I would come home and drink more. I mean, a lot of times I did that. And I never took breaks. I think it's amazing to have how many different ways you can be an alcoholic and how many different ways that can like manifest, because I have friends that would take breaks for months at a time and they're still alcoholics, but they, you know, then they would go to periods where they would drink every day, all day. I never really drank all day, every day, but I drank every night at least. And I never took a break longer than probably a week or two. And that was when I had COVID. And actually, when I had COVID, I thought my symptoms were crazy. I had like full body rashes. I was constantly shaking. It took me so long to realize that I had just gone through alcohol withdrawal. And I did not know. I thought it was COVID. I mean, it was COVID. I had COVID, but...
yeah, but people who have COVID don't see and hear things that aren't there.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't have like pervasive nightmares.
Yeah. And the shakes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then suddenly, you know, there's an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they think they've caught the plague and they think they need a quarantine. And then they realize, oh, we're just all going through alcohol withdrawal.
Yeah. So when does the end show up?
Well, after about a year of having a lot of really, you know, pretty messy, sometimes, I mean, best case scenario, I was just drinking a lot. Worst case scenario, I was getting in cars with strangers. And, I mean, I'd done that for a long time, you know, before the pandemic too. My safety was not important to me whatsoever. But there'd been a few bad nights. I'd had a really scary incident on the subway, and that I would have been able to handle had I been not drinking. And then I went to a party on, I think it must have been August 6th. And I was with a lot of friends, and it wasn't a particularly bad night, but I did black out. I was often blacking out that whole summer. By the end, everything, I could have 2 beers and I would feel like I was browning out. And then I could have like 20 beers and somehow nothing would happen. It was so unpredictable. But that night, nothing really horrible happened. But the next morning, I had one of those prolific sort of hangovers that I'd been getting for, you know, well over a decade at that point, where they last days, and I could just tell. And I remember having the blinds drawn. My whole leg was bruised. I didn't know why. And then I realized I must have fallen a lot. And I FaceTimed with my best friend. And instead of saying the thing that I'd said over and over for years, every time I had a horrible hangover, I would always say, I'm never drinking again. And I did not mean that one bit, obviously. You know, what I meant was, this sucks. I wish I didn't have a hangover. But I didn't say I'm never drinking again. And instead I said, I think I need help. And I think that I didn't even understand how different that was at the time. It didn't dawn on me for months that was so different. But I stopped, after that I stopped drinking, and I didn't come into the rooms for a few weeks though. My best friend and I went to house sit, for their ex-husband in Esopus, New York. And it was so lovely. We ate a lot of candy. They
have great pies up there.
Oh, amazing. Oh my, they have so much beautiful, everything's just so beautiful and clean and lovely. And
it's not far from Newport's.
Oh yeah. Yes. Oh, it's so pretty.
I know it.
I could only appreciate it
I know
half the
Esopus
time.
very well.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't.
Rolling hills.
I couldn't leave the house that much still though, because I was so afraid that I would trip and fall. I remember sitting at a restaurant and just being like, I haven't drank in 2 weeks. What if I just did right now? And I'm glad I didn't. But it was I was afraid that I was going to accidentally do that somehow. And so I couldn't bring myself to leave the house once I got back to New York. And finally I ended up, I think probably early September, late August that year, I went online, finally found my home group, which was very close to my house. And I thought, hey, worst case scenario, I'll just walk right by and I won't walk in. And of course, the chair was standing outside and was like, hello, welcome. So I had to go in because I can't disappoint anybody. And I'm so glad I did.
Did you know that meeting was there this whole time?
Never. No idea. I mean, I barely left the house besides at night. So, I never walked by there. I don't think I knew anything. I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings for years. I mean, I don't think I knew any of my neighbors for years. Today was a beautiful day. It's a Sunday. It's so pretty. And I don't think I ever would have wanted to leave the house on a day like today because I would have been so mad that I would have had to actually leave, walk around and it's sunny. And then I'd have to acknowledge that the world is okay.
Yeah. So you come in, you start going to these meetings. What's it like?
Well, my first meeting, I did not raise my hand at all. I was so nervous. They did make me read how it works.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I was like, thank God I didn't know that they make people read because I probably wouldn't have wanted to come. I hated public speaking. Now I don't care about, if there's anything the rooms are good for, it's getting more comfortable with public speaking. No, it's amazing for everything else too. But after my first meeting, even though I didn't raise my hand, this girl came up to me. Shout out to Mackenzie. This girl came up to me, and she just knew that
you were new.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, in retrospect, now I know what that look is.
Now you know. Like, now you can say, hey, there's somebody counting days.
I was like, wow, how did she know? And of course, I can now see it.
Thank God, because she is lovely.
She's a fantastic human being.
Unbelievable, lovely.
Such a
human.
nice person.
Yeah. So she comes up to you, and what's that like for you?
Oh, I was first of all, I was so grateful because I was so nervous. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. It was a Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday clean and sober meeting, and it was sunny because it was summer, so it was still nice outside. But I remember I didn't know how to talk to anybody, and she knew that. And she ended up being, we had the same area code, and that's crazy. And so then it was just it was what I now see as like a very much a God moment where it was like, not only did this person come up to me and talk to me, and when I'm in a moment where I'm terrified of everything, but also she's from where I'm from. She was about the same age as I am. And I remember at the end of that meeting, I had thought, well, I could come back next week. And instead she was like, there's another meeting tomorrow. So she came with me to the other meeting the next day. And that day she was like, there's another meeting tomorrow. And she came with me meeting the next day after that. And so she came with me to meetings for like 5 days. And that is, I don't know if I would have been back the following week. I think I would have, but I don't know.
There's a lot of space. Mm-hmm. And space is not good for people like us.
No.
Because you can be like, all of a sudden, you'll be too busy tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. There could be 2 hours, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, it's funny.
What have I done? But instead, thank God she did, because it was like I fell in love very quickly with the rooms. I loved it. I loved the fellowship very quickly. And it took me a while to get a sponsor. It took me a while to start the steps. And once I was going to meetings every day, that really carried me for a while. I didn't know that there was a pink cloud that pops until it popped, and I was upset about it, and that's when I started the steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there's just so much love in that room.
Yeah.
And everybody matters. And we find out that's what everybody just wanted their whole life. It was just to matter a little bit, We can tell. I remember when I saw you, first of all, it looked like you were like,
Don't look at me.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, they're new. They're new. which is good. It's like, sometimes I call it like emotionally thawing out. You know what I'm saying? Because initially you're like fucking cold and you don't want anybody near you. And then you let one person, maybe it's Mackenzie, right? Maybe one and half of another, like talk to you. And then like you sit in the same area, you don't want to move around the room. It's like, all of those things. And we're like watching. And we're so happy that when, people, when they keep coming, there's nothing else I can say to somebody who's new except for just please keep coming. I don't even just say keep coming. I say please keep coming, keep coming. Because eventually you'll thaw out. Yeah. And then you'll be like, hey, look. Once you thaw out, then you say, okay, now it's up to you. If you want to stay here, this is your home. You can stay with us as long as you want. And maybe, I don't know, I'll ask you this question, which is always, it's enlightening for me. How far along were you, whether it was days, weeks, months, before you saw your first person come in that was like ice cold and you were like, holy shit, I know what that person is feeling right now?
Oh, man. I think it was late December or January, and it was a friend of mine who I'm still very close with. And it was like watching somebody go from being kind of panicky and nervous. And we had so much in common. I just knew we had so much in common. And
you didn't know her from before?
Never, no. We never met. But I remember knowing, that was the first time I knew right away it was someone's first meeting. I could just tell. And I don't know why I could tell, but I think at that point I'd seen a lot of people come in, but I hadn't talked to most of them. A lot of them were, a lot of the people I saw come in were like older men, that don't necessarily need to have me be the first person to approach them, But this girl, I remember talking to her, and then just this beautiful transformation of seeing somebody start to like themselves. And I got it. I really got it. And it's always such a miracle. But the first time I really got a chance to do what Mackenzie did for me was last year. A friend of mine, I think I must have been about a year into sobriety, and there was this girl, and I just knew, first of all, I knew I could tell she knew she needed to be there, but she didn't want to be there. And I absolutely knew that feeling. I knew that feeling so well. And that was the first time I really got a chance to like go to a meeting every day with somebody brand new,
What was that like for you?
Well, at that time, I had kind of stopped going to as many meetings for a little bit. I just had my first anniversary about a month before, maybe a month and a half. And something in me just was like resisting change again. And I was like, well, I did the anniversary. That's great. You spoke. That was amazing. And I was Thank you. Excited. Oh, it was the best. Oh,
I was honored. I showed my kids when you texted me.
Oh, gosh.
Because they know you're my grilled cheese sister. And like, yeah, I was so excited. Oh. So then after that, I tell people all the time, they don't want to hear me. I say it's easier to get 1 year than stick around for 2. Mm-hmm. Because after a year, you're really almost dusting yourself off.
Well, I mean, I remember hearing a woman who'd been sober like 11 years, and she said the only thing better than a first anniversary is a second anniversary.
Yep.
And because she said she did not see that many of them.
Because the program really works.
Yeah.
In 1 year, you'll get so much relief in 1 year of not drinking and being in the herd with the rest of us, that like you start to be like a buoy that starts drifting into the fucking ocean. But then you meet this girl,
and I understood why. I always knew it was so important because I talked to newcomers a lot, and I always tried to talk to people the way that people had talked to me early on too. But at that time, I was going to like a couple meetings a week. It was not enough. I was like not doing a lot of praying. I definitely wasn't talking to my sponsor, my poor sponsor. But this girl, I started going to meetings with her, and she was like, "Are you sure you don't mind?" And oh my God, I did not mind. I could not emphasize enough. And I think someday she'll believe me, but it was like really, truly helped me more than anything. I couldn't believe, and it was like I fell back in love with AA again. That's when I started going to meetings again every day. And, lo and behold, everything started feeling better. And things only did go back up from there. And that was that was when I really recommitted to, I want to actually do the spiritual change and not just lifestyle change. That was really important. And everything got better because my relationship with the rooms was sort of, it was not tenuous, but it was just like inconsistent. And then my relationship with God was very inconsistent, and things just got so much better after that. And right after that, though, like a month later, I found out I was getting laid off. Everything was thrown into the kind of, I was so uncertain and I was so scared. But because I'd spent a month really going to, meetings every day, because I remember the day I found out I was getting laid off, I remember thinking I deserve to take a nap. And instead of taking a nap, though, I love the phrase smart feet. My feet took me to a 3 p.m. meeting, like a step meeting.
Which are now at 3:30.
Which is, I'm glad you said that. Because people I chair a 3:30 p.m. meeting. And
people are like,
up.
you still going to the 3 o'clocks? I'm like, dog, they're 3:30 now.
3:30.
I mean, it's relatively new, just so everybody knows, they're 3:30.
Yep.
So instead of taking a nap, your feet,
my feet
smart
got
feet,
smarter.
oof.
Yeah, I walked to this, at the time, 3 p.m. I walked in, and I'm so glad I did, because it was like somehow that particular 3 p.m. meeting had like 12 of my favorite, I knew every single person in the room. And even if there was somebody I didn't know, I'm sure I would have loved them too. But it was like every single person in the room was like somebody I had a really wonderful interaction with and been supportive. We've been supportive of each other. Several of them are really close friends. And it was amazing. It was so wonderful. And I just, I think we were reading, and somebody was going to share, and somebody shared, and then everybody's sharing on whatever we read, and it gets to me, and I just burst into tears. It was like, I found out I'm getting laid off, and I could not stop crying. But, I went to a meeting the next day, cried again. I went to midday the next day after that, cried again, and took the burning desire. And by the weekend, which I thought would be the worst weekend ever, I felt better. I thought I was going to be crying the whole time at all the weekend meetings I was going to, because I love weekend meetings too. And I didn't. It was just like, I believe people in the rooms, because there's so many people who've been through things like getting laid off. And I trust them when they say things, this can be okay. I could tell there was this meaning and this experience behind when someone said it's going to be okay, where I believed them, and I did not feel like they were just patting me on the shoulder going like, there, it's going to be fine, stop crying,
Yeah, well, I was talking with Rebecca today, right, who is my sister from another mister, who's celebrating 30,000 years on like March 25th, right? So like before the rooms, like you're so used to like, Sam, you'll live. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Which is like, not that you need the validation, but like look, it would be abnormal if you are sober for a whole year and then you drift away a little bit. You come back because this new girl, whatever, blah, 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 and then you get laid off. It would be abnormal if you just brushed that off. Yeah. Something would be wrong with you. That means that like you are really, something is wrong. Because it's a situation that warrants whatever that is. Happy it wasn't the nap, but if you needed the nap, okay, rather you be in the meeting. Because, sometimes the nap could lead to all the other stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you know, to allow yourself to just go through whatever that is. The uncertainty, the grieving. I've been working here for whatever. Is this part of my identity of who I, like, whatever that is, you know, to be like, nah, man, you know, my second sponsor, and I say this all the time, everybody always is sick of me saying it, Free Willy. He's the one that taught me that it's all on the menu, all of it. All means all. So that means that, like, no, man, you don't even know who you're going to be.
Yeah.
And that is beautiful. Not in the terror, fear of going from high school to college to being like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to be the singer. And then in 6 months finding out you ain't going to be no singer, right? Because of your activities. And because, like, not in a fearful way, but in like a loving, like, it's an open road for you now. And it doesn't mean that it better be scary. You know what I'm saying? But in a healthy way. Like, because it's not going to be doom. It's going to be like, the fear is that, like, I get to choose now. Yeah. I'm not being led around by this habit that's just taking me from place to place and person to person and job to job. I'm like, okay, I guess you're going to pay me this. Well, I need that so I can pay this, so I can drink this, so I can do this, so I can be this. You know, now it's like, it's freedom. Mm-hmm. Freedom is scary.
Yes.
But it's that good fear. And then somebody's going to come in and they're going to be like, I just got laid off today. And everyone's going to look at you and you're going to go talk to them.
Hello.
No, it's so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
I remember that day because I remember a friend, my friend Joe was like, you know, you now get to build the life you want, which I had not even thought about. And I mean, I just hadn't even thought about the fact that this is it's not a restart. It's completely different. I don't want to do over on the life I've already had. I would like to keep going.
Yeah, like a start over, not a do over.
Not a
do-over. Start from right here.
Yeah, and I want new memories. I don't want to just relive the old ones and try and rewrite them. And that's really different than how things, you know, when I was still drinking, it was like I just wanted so badly to have, even though I didn't ever want to be drinking like a quote unquote normal person, I wanted to drink the way I drank and have not terrible things happen. I don't know why, but I thought that makes sense. And now it's like, I don't want to do the same things over and over and like pray for a different result. It's like, I would like to do something different. And my sponsor says, you know, and I'm going to definitely like butcher her saying this, but pray like it's up to God and work like it's up to you. And that's really important to me. So
it's very important to understand like the same, exactly what you're saying in the vein, in the sense of, you want this spiritual life, you're going to have to give up some control. Yeah. Because you trying to control is sober pain. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, so you want that freedom, you're going to have to give up some control, and you're going to have to trust in your higher power, God, the universe, whoever, and also rely on the rest of us. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing, is that you don't have to, it's up to you whether or not you want to do it alone. But you don't have to. Like what your sponsor says, it's a very it's like the remix of the old moniker, which was, it's you and God in the boat, and God don't row. So you row, he steers. That's it.
I love that.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Sam, this was beautiful. I could have stayed here for another 2 hours. But, yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Always. Oh, my God. I've been looking forward to this for so long. Like and subscribe on all podcast platforms of the Sober Experience. Again, keep an eye out for the new YouTube channel with the same name. It's got the graphic is the same as the podcast. It's me or somebody with the big cup of coffee trying to wrestle it into submission. But we'll see you guys around campus. Peace.